Hanover's faculty members' professional work involves more than just teaching in the classroom. A faculty member just has released a new book. Dr. Davidson and her co-author join me for this edition of In the Studio. Pop culture consumes our everyday lives, but many people don't know how it impacts them and our society. Welcome to In the Studio. I'm your host, Clarice Shaley. Today we're talking to one of our communication professors and her co-author about her new book. Dr. Rachel Davidson and Dr. Lara Stache, welcome to the studio. Thanks for coming.
Thanks
for having us.
Your new book is called Gilmore Girls, A Cultural History. It looks on so many issues involving relationships from a rhetorical viewpoint, parenthood, friendships, feminism, issues of class, and small-town life. The program contains a combination of fast-paced and quirky writing that forms the relationship between the single mother, Lorelai, and her teenage daughter, Rory, like we see in this clip.
Very thoughtful. You hungry?
How does examining a TV show help to inform our understanding of social relationships?
Oh, wow.
Well, I think so. We do a lot of different research where we look at television shows, and when it comes to anything that we're watching, in this case Gilmore Girls, it's a reflection of the world that we live in. So if it wasn't something that was accurate to the real world, it wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't be believable enough. So I think that we can analyze different themes within a show, and we do that and try and figure out what does it say about the culture that we live in.
Because the idea behind our discipline and what we study is that public discourse and popular discourse like television shows, people are, it reflects what people are talking about in society. So we can learn about social relationships like motherhood, fatherhood, romantic relationships, and by understanding what people are writing about in the show, that helps us learn about what might be happening outside the show.
And I've never seen the show personally. How is it necessary to see the show in order to understand the book?
I think it'd be more fun to
Yeah.
because there's, we have fun with our criticism of the show and not knowing what we're talking about and some of the jokes that we're making. It would not make any sense, but I think it would help to watch it.
I think if you're familiar with the show, familiar with the characters, it's going to make the reading of the book easier and a lot more fun and more meaningful to you. So.
Okay. And the Gilmore Girls ran from 2000 to 2007 and then had a short Netflix reboot in 2014. Is this book for fans of the show, or is it for a different audience, or is it for multiple audiences?
That's a great question. Primarily when we started writing the book, I don't think the 4 additional A Year in a Life had been released yet, or had just been released.
Yeah.
So that doesn't, we talk about that in our book, but that's not the focus of our analysis. We're really focusing on those first 7 seasons of the show. So the audience includes fans of Gilmore Girls, but it's also situated for a mainstream intellectual audience. So people who are interested in popular culture, and feminism, and gender, and socioeconomic status, things like that. So.
And Dr. Stache, you were the one who first was drawn to the show. What did you find interesting about it or inspiring about the Gilmore Girls?
I mean, everything. It's fantastic. It's such a good show. You should definitely binge it.
I will.
It's on Netflix, so it's possible to do. I just think there are some great roles for women, but the male roles are not neglected. There's a lot of sort of dramatic elements, but it's also very funny. The show is known for the pace of its dialogue. Like, their dialogue goes back and forth so quickly. Their scripts were like twice as long as any show that was being written at the time, because Amy Sherman Palladino has this way of writing. Like, she has a very unique voice, and so it was something that I had never seen anything like it before. So yeah, I just think it was, it was great. But I will say you may not love it at first. She did not. It took her many years to get into it, and finally she fell in love with it, but it took her some time. So, keep trying, everybody, because I think everyone will eventually love it.
Yeah, it had to hit me at the right moment in my life. So I started watching it when you stayed over at my house.
Forced her to watch it.
And I liked it. I didn't dislike it. But then when my daughters got older, and they were teenage age, so getting to Rory's age, it was something that we started to watch together as a family, and I began to appreciate that mother-teenage daughter dynamic a lot more than I did when, I don't know, my kiddos were just little babies.
Yeah,
so
you were able to connect to it more.
yes, absolutely. Yeah. The other thing too that I would add to it, one appeal of the show to me when I finally did get around to watching it, is the pop culture references. So the show is really known for that, but not until I watched it did I think, oh my gosh, these people are so smart. By these people, I mean the show's creators. I mean the deep cuts that they talked about. I mean they just. I like to consider myself, I go beyond popular music knowledge, and some of the references to just really obscure bands and movies, I thought, wow, this is really cool. This is a cool show. I need to continue watching.
That also makes it fun to rewatch because you cannot catch everything the first 7-8 times you watch the series, right? But it's like, all of a sudden there's like a reference that's like, oh, I don't even remember that. Or now I understand that. Maybe you didn't know what it meant the first time you saw it. So.
Yeah, it's like watching movies at a certain time in your life and then going on. And yeah that happens to me all the time. And writing a book is quite an undertaking. Why did you choose to embark on this?
She made me.
We were crazy. Yeah.
Well, we work a lot together, so we're very close friends. But we also we study the same things. We're interested in academically, kind of the writing about the same things. And then this was really Lara's idea. She approached me about this book, and she was so excited when I actually started watching the show. And then she was like, "Okay, if you really like this show, you're writing this book with me." So it was kind of, and then it turned out to be a labor of love. I mean, it really was, for me, the most fun I'd had writing anything. I mean, it was just a lot more fun than I thought it would be. So
there are only a few shows that I felt like I could write about or wanted to write a whole book about as opposed to just like an article, and this was one of them. And I didn't want to write it by myself, and she was really into the series, and I thought it was perfect. So
just perfect timing.
Lined up perfect,
yes, it did line up perfect.
Awesome. So how did you guys split up the work? Did you switch out on chapters, or was it just a full-on collaboration?
We switched chapters. Yeah. So we initially. Yeah. So we each took like 4 chapters. I think there's four and 4. And then we would exchange them and revise so that each of them would have a similar voice, because you didn't want them to have completely different voices and be able to tell like, oh, this seems like it's written by a totally different person. So we exchanged them back and forth until they all sounded like they were written by the same person, essentially. Yeah.
And I think we did.
Yeah.
We did that.
Yeah,
it was good. But this wasn't the first time that we had collaborated together. So we were very comfortable with each other in terms of exchanging, understanding each other's writing style, length of time management style. So it was, it really hit us at a really perfect point, because we had so much experience working together on other projects that this just seemed to really flow. I mean, there were certain lulls where we were like, okay,
and panic moments.
We need to get this going, because we were under contract, so we had a deadline. It was like January 2nd.
We got to turn in January 1st, so we were
a day early.
We asked for an extension, so that was an extended deadline, but we did meet the final deadline that we had. So yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yay.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
And you guys are both rhetorical scholars, and who both received your PhDs at the University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee. Yes. And so could you guys both talk about how your dissertations interested interest your book or work on the book?
Like how it
more-
informed the
yeah,
book?
Yeah.
Well, my dissertation was on the avenging woman in popular television and film, so very much this idea of gender and popular culture. But I think just undertaking a dissertation, you are having to write various chapters, and it's a really long-term project. And I think we both hit a point where we were like, we kind of miss having that bigger project to work on as opposed to like a chapter or an article, which is it's still a long process, but it's just a much smaller piece of the pie as opposed to writing like the whole pie, right? Like getting to explore it from a lot of different angles. So I think having just gone through the process was helpful.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that until you just said that, but you're exactly right. Yeah, I think maybe this book is our longing or missing of that dissertation, which caused us so much stress.
Because we're insane.
Yeah, because we are insane, yeah. The other thing I was going to add about that, so my dissertation actually was not focused on popular discourse, but more public discourse. But I'm really interested in public-private valuing and in terms of how we publicly talk about things like caregiving and motherhood. And so that public-private valuation absolutely came into play and informed a lot of the different chapters. And also bare minimum, both of us are rhetorical scholars, so the method of rhetorical criticism is pretty much what we have, the method that we used in this book as well. One other idea that we kept reminding each other, actually you kept reminding me, which was so awesome, is that we can write these chapters as if we would teach these in a class. So write about something. You were talking about audience earlier. Like write about something that you think would be able to teach a student something in a rhetorical criticism classroom. So how popular culture advances a narrative forward. How feminism is an underlying theme, maybe more implicit but not explicitly stated in the show. And so we really worked hard to try to do that in all of the chapters too.
Awesome. I did notice that when I read that I was like, oh, this seems like something that would be taught in a classroom. Like, oh,
Well,
that's so cool. I did learn from it too. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And now this book is actually a part of a series for you. Dr. Stache, how does it compare to your earlier book analyzing the series Breaking Bad?
Well, so I wrote that one by myself, which was like, it just made it a totally different project. In not as much fun to write. I mean, I loved writing it because I loved that series so much and I wanted to explore it and I was really missing it. But like the tone of Breaking Bad and the tone of Gilmore Girls is so different that there's no comparison. But it's also, there's also no other series that I would want to write this in-depth of a book for, but there are so many more books in this larger series. So there's ones on Friends, Simpsons, Frasier, Cheers, Mad Men. Like so it's anybody who sort of has a series that they want to explore, they have the space for that. So we got our space for Gilmore Girls.
Oh, awesome. And Dr. Davidson, did the Breaking Bad book influence your decision to co-author at all? Did that add to that?
Absolutely.
Interest?
Lara is such an amazing storyteller. I really just admire how she can tell a story, whether it's academic or non-academic. And I was actually really nervous about writing this book because I don't see myself as up to par with.
Oh, good Lord. That's crazy.
Because her Breaking Bad book is such a wonderful blend of academic and mainstream and just such a broad audience. And I thought, I don't know if I can write non-academically. It was really difficult. But then it turned into, thank you. It turned into like, yes, she empowered me. I can do this. And I did do it. It was fun.
And finally, one more thing I loved about the book is the title of the chapters. Like, people die, we pay. I'm afraid once your heart is involved, it all comes out in moron. Are these lines from the show?
Yes.
They are.
You need to watch the show. You will love it.
I would have known if I would have seen it.
The writing on the show is so good. is so smart and so funny, and it just sort of comes out of nowhere, or it just like blindsides you with this weird reference that you had no clue. That we wanted to get it in as much as possible. So for every episode summary, we picked a line that we thought was the funniest or most appropriate for that episode. But there were a lot of other lines that we wanted to get in there. So
it was very difficult to choose a best line from each episode, and actually made it really difficult. So as rhetorical scholars, what we would do is, when we were watching the TV show, we're trying to take notes, and just to try to take notes and capture the dialogue that is just going on in the show was really, really difficult. So it's just like, stop, rewind, stop. But
there are also lines that like I use them daily because they're so funny, right? So we felt like we wanted to get as many lines in there as we possibly could, and they were appropriate for the chapters that we were working on. So.
and just so you get a little, one thing I'm proud of about our process, or not proud of, but just like I thought this was kind of a fun thing. So when we were writing those episode summaries at the end, when we were going through those, we started pulling out those best lines, and we would kind of like vote for each other. It's like, okay, we've got 5 best lines from this, so let's just try to pick one. Well, when we established the lines or picked the lines for the table of contents, that came at the very end. So it was really fun to go back once we had pretty much the book was complete, and we were just looking for lines that might reflect something that, now this is captured in a chapter. What line might best reflect that? And that was really fun to go through. Like, I think I have the perfect one for the friendship chapter. Anyway.
And did you guys end up having to go through and rewatch some of the episodes in order to find like references to things that you wanted to talk about too?
I did.
Yeah.
Laura probably did, me too. Yeah. How many times do you think you've watched this show?
At least 10 times. I like leave it on when I'm working on other things, or if I'm cleaning the house, or because I've just watched it so many times. I know what. But she would say like, "Do you remember there was an episode with this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's this one with this and this," and then we'd look it up, and
So I had to do a lot more digging back because I haven't watched the show as many times as she has. So you're a great resource.
She has more of a life than I. Yeah.
That's okay. It sounds like a great show.
It is.
No, it is.
Okay, and one last question. Is there another book in this series in the works, another TV show that has caught your guys' attention? If you're going to co-author again.
Not for me. No.
No.
Never again.
No. We're talking about other book possibilities, but not within this series.
Can we hear about other book possibilities?
It's pretty new. We've talked about looking at the cyborg in popular television and film, and like the use of particularly the female cyborg, I would say. So like the female machine-like character. And we think we're like really early stages. Do we have enough to warrant a book for this? Do we want to maybe just think about this a little bit? So we're really early, but we think that would be a fun one. So.
Awesome, cool. And I think people watch TV more than they watch movies or read books. And yet it seems like to me that TV shows get a lot less analysis. So your book seems to fit a specific niche.
Mm-hmm.
And the book was released in September, right? And what kind of reviews have you guys gotten from that?
Mostly positive. I think, and some really good feedback. Actually, there were a couple reviewers that we thought, why couldn't we have sent you this book before we sent it out? This feedback is excellent. But some particular comments about Logan, one of the characters on the show.
So there are teams when it comes to some of the romances within the series. And when it comes to Rory, the daughter in the series, she dates 3 different guys seriously throughout the series: Dean, Jess, and Logan. And who you align with is sort of like a peek into your soul and your personality. And so Rachel's team, she's team Rory.
Team Rory.
Nobody is good enough for Rory. I'm team Jess, who is better later. He's not a great boyfriend at first, but there's reasons for it. I'm defending him. Yes. I feel like I need to. Some people are team Dean, which I can kind of understand. He's very pretty.
And that was that was her first boyfriend, her first
very nice to her. Situations later, but you need to watch the series to see all that. And then there's Logan, who neither of us could stand. And we say in the book, we will try and understand the Team Logan fans. We will do our best. But that was a bit of a lie because throughout the book, we're sort of like, we don't get it. Why would she go with Logan? Why this? Why this? He does this, he's gross, he's this, you know. So the biggest criticism has been the people who are Team Logan. They felt we did not give him a fair shake.
Yeah. They thought, why are you so hard? I like the book, but why are you so hard on Logan? Which is pretty funny. So,
and we probably should have tried to understand that team better.
I think we should have. Yes.
It's okay. You guys had a lot of other stuff you were talking about in your book. They should be okay with it. Well, thank you guys for joining me today in the studio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Students who want to check out Dr. Davidson's book can find it in the Dugan Library or can order it off of Amazon. I'm Clarice Shaley, and this has been In the Studio.